Jeff Sands will be our next speaker. Mr. Sands is a journalist and freelance contributor with the Epoch Times, based in Vancouver area. He recently spoke at the National Citizens Inquiry, sharing his perspective on how journalism is corrupted by a polarized readership and corporate and governmental financial ties. Please help me welcome Jeff Sands.
Everything that Derek said. Essentially, the other speakers have already covered most of what I was going to say, so hopefully I'll be a little bit shorter. But I studied journalism 35 years ago, and I worked in it for about 5 years until I did something else. And I came back a couple of years ago because, in my opinion, journalism has betrayed us. And I just felt a calling to try and take what I had been trained to do and see if I can resurrect that professionalism in an industry that didn't seem to have any. I mean, my solution is all the same that everybody else is saying, is that the independent efforts out there that don't get government funding, aren't reliant on the dollars from big advertisers. The smaller voices are the ones that are able to look themselves in the mirror and recognize whether or not they're being balanced or biased, because they don't have much wiggle room to make mistakes. But in the bigger media outlets, there is no accountability. And sadly, we're in an environment where I can go and say, this reporter is not professional, that media outlet is fake, but I also know that those same ones will point their finger back at me and say the same thing, using their own set of criteria. And we have migrated to the voices and the media we want to hear, and largely what's happening in our media landscape is they recognize that demographic and they give us what we demand, which is basically unbalanced reporting. Essentially, again, I'm here to advocate that we use our money, our internet clicks, our podcasts, where we turn to find the people like Will, Serena, the Western Standard, the ones that Derek showed up there that aren't reliant on government money. I'm not sure much what I'm going to be able to contribute in excess of what they've already had, but where I think I have, I guess, some experience to speak on is I believe I was trained how to do journalism when it was a noble profession. And the techniques in our journalism world include all kinds of things. For example, and you'll see these when you read them, unnamed sources, butchered quotes, inflammatory headlines, stories based only on allegations, no alternative viewpoints or confirmation of the source. These are all things that have become standard in what constitutes journalism now. And we live in an era where we for the industry that we have depended on to keep us informed and challenge the people that make decisions that affect our lives, that we have let you down. That these last 3 years in particular, but the last 12 that I've noticed, we wouldn't be in this position with division and finger pointing and hatred if we as our media had actually done our job. Yeah, I'm just trying to find where I have something that's a little bit different to mention, but to give you a couple of examples, we all here probably have looked at alternative viewpoints from the government and the mainstream media's sort of illustrations on what's gone on with COVID and the vaccines. But to give you a little bit of perspective, when we've seen, when they were reporting on vaccines, for example. Few people realize that Health Canada had never actually approved them. They were only on what's called an interim order. That is something that should never really be used in any circumstance, but it is an absolute integral. Imagine for people who had actually thought that the vaccines were safe and effective, learned that there was actually no approval from Health Canada. And of course, even more people don't even know that the government is right now looking to recraft the procedures that take vaccines, medicines, therapies, and abandon the scrutiny and the testing that has made them come to market in the first place. That is journalism malpractice, because that is part of what makes this story, which has enveloped our lives for the past several years, more important for us to know the truth on. The government subsidies. I wrote a list down of what a lot of the outlets are. Derek pointed out about $600 million has gone to things like the Digital Citizen Initiative. The Digital Citizen Initiative is a multi-component strategy that aims to support democracy and social inclusion in Canada by building citizen resilience against online disinformation. They have another foundation, supporting media literacy to stop the spread of online disinformation. A strong digital citizenship relies on diverse and reliable sources of information. To address the increase in online disinformation, we must support organizations who dedicate their efforts in educating citizens on how to be more critical of online information. The Canada Media Fund, hundreds of millions of dollars going towards TV and digital platforms. Derek brought up Postmedia. The CEO, Paul Godfrey, after $600 million was dedicated just to that alone over 5 years from Canada Heritage, he said, "I tip my hat to the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister. They deserve a lot of credit. Everyone in journalism should be doing a victory lap around their building right now." Postmedia owns a huge portion of our media landscape in this country, and the CEO is outright saying, hey, thank you, government, for doing that. They have a thing called Special Measures for Journalism. $40 million over 3 years. $45 million they also had back in 2020, $23 million in 2021. They have the Local Journalism Initiative, which is $70 million over 5 years. They support Media Smarts, which created Break the Fake, how to tell what's true online. And if you go in there and you type in something about whatever, COVID, Pierre Poilievre, Justin Trudeau, you only get an algorithm that brings up such as articles from CBC, New York Times, BBC, essentially the same like-minded viewpoints. So what I guess I would just echo with everybody else here is that when the government is involved in supporting our media is the ones that are making the decisions on what counts as news and editorial content. There's a lot of thin newsrooms right now that don't have a lot of copy editors, that have to really stretch their dollars. You don't make a lot of money in journalism, and so if you want to earn a living, what you have to do is try to get 2 stories out a day, maybe 3 in 2 days, and do that every day, every week. You're going to cut corners. You're not interviewing as many people. And anywhere you go, you'll probably see the majority of stories that have maybe 1 interview, 1 piece of information, because that's the easiest way to get it out quickly. If we stop funding our competitors, well, I shouldn't say it like that. When legacy media is being funded or being given a lot of money from advertisers that also control their content, then that is they don't need to make any adjustments. I would argue that you guys, we need to be able to take people like Will, Serena, Western Standard, even Rebel News and others that are not funded by government, and let's make sure that we support them. And that'll be my time.